Hello.
We're here early.
I know.
We're like on the dot. This is the first time I've been on the dot with no tech issues. Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Yes. Welcome, everybody.
Ah,
Welcome to Connect Impact Hub, everyone. We are ready to go. I'm so excited about this conversation that we're having today. We have our beautiful, wonderful sister, Brendaliz, in the building, and we're going to be discussing mental health awareness on social media and how it plays a crucial role, in our everyday life. So I'm going to pass over the mic to Brendaliz, please.
Oh my goodness. So
have
first of all, you can hear me, right? You can hear me? Okay, awesome. So first of all, let me introduce myself a little bit more. So I am a holistic transformational coach. I use different methodologies to help people basically overcome their own deepest programming. So basically, I help people move from self-doubt and self-sabotage and I don't know what else to describe it, but self-doubt and self-sabotage to literally be able to live a life where they feel they're free to do whatever it is that they're meant to do. And I've been learning a lot about the power of the mind. I've been learning a lot about I would say the way our subconscious mind works and the way we interpret information. So I am always posting things in social media, but I'm also watching how everybody reacts or interacts with other people through social media, right? And it's interesting because I feel, Martha, we are in a world where there's so much going on around us. And people leave feeling there's a lot of reaction out there, right? But on top of that, on top of everything that is happening around us, add the fact that now we are relying completely in a lot of written or short verbal communication that can be open to misinterpretation or interpretation based on your own way of seeing the world, right? So that's kind of why we made the choice that this was an important topic.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, when it comes to mental health, right? Some of us, we are not able to afford a mental health care provider. So we come to platforms such as, I'm going to say, this platform, YouTube, for example, where we find a length of information on what to do when it comes to mental health support. So as we move forward, Brendaliz, please also share a little bit, because I know me and you have worked as well with techniques on how to maneuver through calmness, basically when we're high on anxiety, or maybe we're dealing with depression or, our own mental health we may need. I apologize.
It's okay. He's over there too, so at any point.
So we may also need our own support and how to go about it. I know previously, before I came on LinkedIn, I was on YouTube learning about how to relax. I never knew about breathing, by the way, so that I learned from you. But before that, I got to see a lot of folks coming on YouTube to share their personal stories, their struggles, their success. But when you do that, there's also other situations that come about that as you're sharing your personal story on social media. And that's something that we don't really think about until we're in it. And then once we're in it, we start experiencing either positive feedback or negative feedback. And so that's where it gets a little uncomfortable. What are your thoughts?
So before we go into we can do some things at the end. I would say let's talk a little bit about what you just mentioned because it's really fascinating. I was I follow certain groups in Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and all of that, right? And um, like there's posts that are like created to make people laugh, or there's posts where people are speaking their heart, right? And they're talking from their own perspective, their own point of view, or they're sharing something that for them it's exciting, is new, is good, it's great, and they want the world to know it. And there's always these people who come in into the comment section, and they start to either criticize whatever the people are saying, or make judgments out of what people are saying, or basically interpret. You can see how people interpret information differently because of the comments that they are saying. So you may have one post all of a sudden where someone is triggered and goes very personal, like this is offensive, and then that exact same post, somebody comes in and makes a comment where, oh my god, this is so inspirational, I love it, like keep doing this. And then there's the person who's like reading all of this message and responding to the people who are judging, right? The key thing here, and this is what I like to explain to people, is we will all interpret information differently, and we will interpret information yes, of course, our state of mind, how we are in that exact moment, makes a huge difference, right? Like if we're happy, if we're coming from a place of joy, if we had a hard conversation with someone, we're gonna read the message or listen to the message in a very unique way. So yes, the way we are feeling, our state of mind at that point in time, both mentally and emotionally, play a role. But that's not it only, Marta. We also interpret information. We are absorbing so much information that we can't digest it all. So what our mind does is it basically does three things: it deletes, distorts, or generalize. So in order to create an image for you, or an interpretation of what that event was all about. That could be a post, it could be a comment from someone, or it could be maybe a video from someone. So, what I want to make sure people, as they're listening, they realize that the way we interpret information, yes, our state of mind and our emotional state plays a role, but we have so many other filters through which we kind of like simplify what we're absorbing in order for us to interpret what's happening. And those filters, what do they include? Can you guess? Tell me one or two, Marta, that you may guess that we may be filtering the information we're absorbing with.
The information that's coming to us.
Yes. So think about what could be a potential filter. Let's test you. And I know you know this.
Yeah, well, now, well, I'm trying to. Okay. So when you say filter, like, what exactly do you mean? Like how I feel, what's going through my mind, like.
So think of our mind as a computer, right? So when you are a when you ask something in Google, you have to be very specific, right? And
Yes.
if you ask in a certain way, Google is going to filter things for you and give you things that Google thinks that they are feasible, right? That it's what you ask for, right? Similar, our mind filters all the information we're absorbing. And the
Mm-hmm.
filters that the mind uses, there's multiple different types of filters in order for you to interpret the information you're absorbing. So can
Mm.
you guess one filter that could be impacting us like significantly?
It's well, definitely, if something comes our way, our body will definitely, you know, affect us, our mental health,
Mhm.
and of course, our backgrounds. Like where I come from, my family's
Uh,
is very dramatic.
Absolutely, absolutely,
So our
absolutely,
culture.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think you said something really interesting, which is we are who we are based on our experiences and where we were born, where we came from. I am
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rican. You
And that's
are Salvadoreña. And the way you were raised, a lot of it came from the uh, Salvadoran, Salvadoran,
yes,
Salvador culture. And in my
yes,
case, yeah, I was born, and who I am and how I interpret information came from the way I was raised, right? Now, add on top of that, that I had three sisters that that we grew up together with. So it was four of us. I'm the second child. This being the second child impacts the way I filter information because my experiences as a second child were completely different than the experiences of my sisters, of my older sister and my younger sister. See? And on
right.
top of that, add that we were all girls raised together, and that my mom was a stay-at-home mom while my dad was out there working. All of that contributes to the way I will interpret information. Now, add on top of that that my language that I was raised with was Spanish. And now as I grew up, I learned English, and now I'm bilingual, and I interpret information in two different languages.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I may be thinking in Spanish, but verbally saying things in English, right?
Right.
Now, on top of that, imagine all the experiences I had as a child that shaped the way I created beliefs about things. For example, I was raised with a father who worked long, long hours. And one of the things he would always teach us is that you have to work very hard. In order for you to gain money, you have to work hard. That money comes to those who work hard. All of that shook the way I felt and I believed, right? And if I continue adding, then I go to college, then I go here, there. All my experiences kind of like shape the way I filter information. Now, my values, on the other hand, knowing my values will highly interpret how that what am I experiencing. If I am someone who is one of my top values is family, I'm going to interpret information that it's posted in social media against family in a very different way than someone who doesn't care shit about family.
It's true. It is true. So how do we create an atmosphere that's sensitive when it
So
comes to the content? When it comes to content, sorry, when it comes to the content that we post, because we have multiple people from different cultures,
mhm.
with different backgrounds, traumas that are posting, and they're learning the ins and outs, and it's more like a trial and error type of thing. But
Mhm.
as me and you, we're posting content,
All
before
the
we
time.
post, we have to process it ourselves. We don't just post on the go.
So I guess for me, number one, if when I have two different positions, one as a content writer and one as someone who may be impacted by a comment or etc etc. So let's take first the content writer one, right? When I'm writing content, I part from the premise, I read my content as much as I can, but I part from the premise and I recognize that English is not my first language. It's always going to have mistakes. So if somebody makes a comment about that, I'm secure enough about myself that I don't care. See, it doesn't bother me because I know who I am. Now, if it did bother me, that's a whole different message. If it did bother me, then there's something else, and we can cover that. But let's say it it doesn't bother me, right, at all. Now that's not a me problem, that's a you problem, meaning the person who wrote the comment, right? It's a their problem because they're interpreting what I wrote and it bothers them. That means that it's highlighting something that they have to work on. So if it impacts me, if it bothers me, then that means there's something deep inside me that I need to work with. And that comment highlighted an opportunity for me to do some inner work. Now, if it's on the other hand, if it doesn't bother me at all, then it's a their problem, meaning they probably reacted because they have their own baggage that they need to deal with, right? So I'll give you an example because I love examples.
Wait,
Tell me.
wait. I want to welcome a couple of our comments we got here from wonderful folks, our family on LinkedIn. I see we have Lisa. Happy Saturday to everyone, especially to my friends Martha and Brendaliz. This is such an important topic. Happy that you're being open and sharing with us. Thank you, Lisa. So great to see you here. I see Brian. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Brian. Okay. Oh, and we also have Wisdom Mother God. Hey, loves, it's divine. Welcome, sister. Great
Love
to
you,
see
divine.
you.
Love you, everybody.
And if for some reason I don't see your comments, please, I do apologize in advance. They don't always cross over, but I will get back to you in the comments. Thank you. Okay, Brendaliz, go ahead and share the examples, please.
So a big example, and I some of you may follow me in different instances in different platforms, and I did a post recently about it. There, well, I've had so many people saying comments, right? But there was one specific one where the person actually interpreted a message, an inner message that I sent them, in a very specific way. They interpret it as if I was insulting them. The first thing that I did when I read that was, oh my God, did I really insult the person? Let me go back, because now I'm getting conscious. I'm thinking, oh my God, I may have wrote something or translated something in my head that came across wrong. I look at the message and you know what? Nope. Everything was fine. I could see how the person could have interpreted what they interpreted. And I proceeded to ask clarifying questions, right? In my mind, right, I was going through the ups and downs of it. So the first thing I did is, oh shit, what did happen? The second thing I did was I kind of like asked myself, okay, let me go in, let me check everything that I wrote. Let me make sure that everything I have is that I wrote is correctly, right? And then I went on, oh my God, I just realized that my own baggage came up because I realized that a fear of mine came up for me. So instead of taking it personally, what I did is I took time to reflect. I went back and I said to myself, okay, let me look at the message. Let me see what could have happened. Let me take a breath before I respond with anything else. If this is happening for me and I feel something inside of me, I have learned to understand how my body reacts when something bothers me. And if this bothers me that much, then there's a sign here for me. There's a lesson here for me. And that's what I did. I went in and I did my own inner work to let it go. But on the other hand, I started to think, what could have like cause this reaction from the person? Well, the answer is simple. What caused my reaction? My reaction was caused by my own baggage, by my own way of experiencing the world, by my emotions, how I was mentally and emotionally the moment I read the message, by how I was raised. Now, the only difference is I've done so much inner work that I can quickly recognize, okay, you know what? There is a learning here. Let me tap into the learning. Let me release any emotions that may be surfacing. Let me let this go in a way where I'm capturing that learning and moving forward. And the second thing I did, then on top of that, I asked myself, and this is a question I recommend everybody to ask yourself: is this mine? Does this belong to someone else or something else? And I asked myself this question, like, is this feeling that I'm having, is it mine? Does it belong to me? Is it something that it's causing me, like, is there something there, or does this belong to the other person? And what came up for me was that it was mixed. A portion of it belonged completely to the other person, which for me is easily to detach from and let go, but a portion of it was mine, which is when I did then the inner work. Because it's that fear that came up. And I'll be very honest here. It's a fear that people will misinterpret the information I share. It's a fear I've had for a long, long time. And I think what this experience highlighted for me was that I had an opportunity to heal that so I can move forward easier.
Wow. If this is something I'm learning. I love that example you shared, Brendaliz, and how you took the steps to go through it, right? So I hope, who's listening here today is taking some notes, because the response, right, would be to react, and not even look, it's just our way, like not even look at us as being the person that maybe have a little bit of something that we need to look inside ourselves. And I know we've had this conversation. You've mentioned this, like, well, why is it bothering you? Let's talk about this. And so what you shared here, I'm going to share another example. We had a community member who I've been working with for a couple weeks. And this person went and posted on social media for help on certain things. And he started receiving a lot of negative responses, because he's just been consistently asking for the same resource, and no one is coming to help. And so it became so consistent that then he was being called out, negative names. And he started to feed into all of this, but he never has looked at himself, right? Because he's so in tune with what's happening on social media that looking at what is internally what's happening is like beyond me, but this also involves mental health. And so it's like, how do you address a situation like that when you're dealing with mental health conditions and you're on social media and you're asking for help or you're pouring your heart out, but you have a mental health condition? Like, what advice, Brendaliz? And I'm putting you on the spot, but
So I guess a lot of things come into my mind. Number one is, and this is what what I encourage people to do when they're in situations like this, is walk away from it. Completely walk away from it. Why? Because you're reading into things from the energy you have at that given point in time. That's your number one filter, your state of mind, your state emotionally and mentally, right? So I would say first step, just walk away. So number two is, I think it's sometimes people need to go through these experiences, and they need to experience that little bit of hate in order for them to realize that there's something that they need to work on, right? Also, if he bought into it, if he basically started to react into it, then that means he's feeding into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's keeping that momentum there, and even if you don't want to, more you're going to attract more of the same, because l- energy goes where attention flows, right? Or energy flows where attention goes. I don't know how the quote goes,
Mm-hmm.
anyway. But like, if you're putting the attention into something that it's not productive and it's not serving you, you're then matching your energy to that attention that you're putting. And now everything else that it's happening, it's going to be in alignment with this new level of energy where you are, right? So number one, yes, go back and go get out of the situation in the moment, take a breather, go outside, walk, drink a glass of water, listen to music, whatever it is that you need to listen to, do it right before going in. Second is, ask yourself if whatever that person is saying, does it belong completely to you, or does it belong to them? If it's a day problem, that's it. It's a day problem. You can let it go. Now, if it's a you problem, meaning it's highlighting something that it's bothering you, then that's where I would say take time to sit with the emotion and allow yourself and ask yourself the question, what am I supposed to learn? That learning that if I learn it, then I can move past this in a very easy way. Um,
That is, yeah, definitely.
And what I
Definitely.
described at the beginning when I say walk away, that's a pattern disruption. That's basically you're basically cutting down that energy flow at that moment, and you're shifting it to something that probably will give you more perspective. Um, and yes, I'm seeing people's comments here. Uh,
Yeah. So
the
let's go to the
challenge,
comments. Let
yeah.
me go
So
to the
that
comments.
I like what Divine is saying. I agree everyone has an opinion, but we don't have to take it personally. I agree 100%, Divine. The challenge I see right now in the world is that a lot of people are taking it personally, and the reason why they're taking it personally is because they have baggage that situation it's highlighting for them. So you have two options: you either continue with the baggage and feed into the misery, or say, I'm done with this, I'm going to take the bull by the horns, and I'm going to just go deeper, a level deeper, to see where this is coming from and what it's trying to teach me, so in the future this doesn't bother me anymore. And
And
yes,
we don't feed energy, mindset, or emotion that we don't want to embody.
absolutely, 100%.
Mhm. Thank you, Divine. Yeah. So, oh, I see. We just welcome our
Maggie,
wonderful Maggie. Hello, great to see you, sister. So,
I'm loving this.
Lisa's in the building here. She said, "Love the self checks and accountability." Yes,
Absolutely. And I
yes.
think this is what I would say to people: if you are getting reactive, that's and you can create, number one, create the self-awareness that you're becoming reactive. Because if you start to identify and recognize that you're getting reactive, then it's easier, because now you're step ahead. Now you can start to think about, okay, I'm getting reactive, I recognize this, and I can start to change it. So it's easier when you have that level of awareness. So the more you become aware of when you become reactive, the more you become aware of when other people's comments or other people's reaction bother you, the more you will be able to shift the way you react to things in the future. But being aware is number one. Then I would say, once you are aware and you recognize that, yes, this is happening, this is how I'm feeling, now you can move into, okay, let me ask myself all these questions. Let me go deeper. Now, I know that we're dealing with a lot of people with mental health issues. And I think if, if, if people who are going through mental health issue are listening to this message, then I would always encourage them to look into this quote that, or into this saying that says, what people do and say have nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. How people react and behave has nothing to do with us, but everything to do with them. Now, we may be contributing to a person's reaction because of the concept of the mirror image, right? Something we say may trigger someone, but that's because that's the way for them to recognize that there's something there they need to work on. We
Mm-hmm.
all play a role in the development and self-awareness of each other because we're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you just shared. And I see Maggie wrote self-love equals love others.
Love it.
So definitely agree with that statement, Maggie. Thank you for sharing. Um, I was also thinking about um, when we look at different perspectives when it comes to social media and the content that we come across, or maybe when we're just listening, how it can trigger us too, Brendaliz. Like,
100%.
um, and sometimes we don't really we walk into certain situations and we don't really realize until we're there and we're listening, and then it actually really does affect us. So how can we, in a scenario like that where we don't know what's going to come up, but when it does come up, on how to process? Should we step away, like exit the room immediately? I mean, like in that scenario, we're there in front of it. How can we, I mean, I know the breathing, I breathe
So I
before.
I would start with the question: is this mine, or is it a my problem or a them problem? If it's a their problem, it's easy. I can stay in the room and I don't have an issue. But if it's highlighting something for me and it's triggering me, I would say, as someone responsible, I would probably either lower the volume of the audio room, take a couple of deep breaths, recenter myself, ground myself, and then come back to the conversation if I feel comfortable. But I think what Divine is saying here, it's completely 100% agree with you. We need to know ourselves and be intentional as much as possible. So if something is triggering you, that's a great opportunity of creating self-awareness and knowing yourself even deeper. If you're in an audio room, rather than putting more fire, to the wood and making an explosion, if you recognize that it's impacting you and triggering you, sometimes walking away and coming back
Yeah.
might be more productive, not for them, but for you. Because at the end, that thing that trigger you is highlighting to you an opportunity of self-work, of self-development. So you can go through life constantly exploding at everybody, being reactive at everybody, and becoming a victim of everything that is happening around you. Or you can take these opportunities as learning opportunities, learning about you, but also about others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'm just sharing the comments here so everyone can see them as well. We're here all supporting one another, and that's the beauty about community. So thank you so much, Brian, Divine, Maggie, Lisa. Thank you for being here.
So it's funny because I'm seeing all these names, and some of them I know who they are, but some of them I'm like Maggie. Do I know Maggie? And I think I know Maggie, but is it
I think
Margaret?
it's Margaret. Margaret, correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, because we have we put like we have different names for different social media, so we present ourselves differently in all
Mhm.
platforms, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's kind of where I'm coming, Marta. I think for me, one thing that changed the way I perceived the world was when I learned that we absorb more than 2 million bits of information, and we interpret the situation with only 126 bits of information. So, how do you go from 2 million bits of information that you're absorbing to all of a sudden creating an image about a situation that only has 126 bits of information? Knowing that, for me, what it told me is that I'm missing a lot of information that creates the reality. So I'm creating my own reality with a little amount of information. And this information, it's coming through the filters that we mentioned at the beginning. So we either distort, generalize, or delete. So we might be deleting information that it's important for us to have the full picture. We might be generalizing things based on our own experience, or we might be distorting things, making things fit into a box that doesn't fit into, based also into on our own experiences. So when I realize as a human being, I am absorbing 2 million bits of information, and I'm only creating this image in my mind that it's dictating how I act, how I behave, how I feel. Then, with only such a small amount of information, what it created was an awareness that now I don't have all the information, and the person that is in the other side may have completely different experience, so their 2 million bits of information will be completely different than mine. So if on top of that I'm absorbing all this information, they're absorbing all their information from their own perspective, their 2 million bits of information might be different than mine. And on top of that, we filter it to the point where we create such a small image. Then we are basically opening the door for miscommunication.
Oh my goodness, definitely. Definitely. As you're just speaking on this, it's also respecting others' views, right?
That that's yes.
Uh, we had a scenario recently come up about the holiday, and a certain individual didn't celebrate the holiday and was expressive about it, and it came off as just being rude, and it didn't go too well. Um, and again, what's so then, like, I use the techniques that we just went over, and we can't always make everyone happy. And I just think about, like, we want to spread love wherever we go, but we want to be accepted as well, right? In what we do and what we're presenting out. But that's not always going to happen. So being able to just walk away is definitely the best thing, and respecting people's views, most importantly, on what they want to do or what they don't.
I've got to say the famous the what people a lot of people use this um let's agree to disagree. For me, I don't like it. I don't like when people use that phrase of let's agree to disagree, because we're basically allowing ourselves to each one live in their own world rather than having the opportunity to get curious and understand where is the other person coming from? Because
Yeah.
the conflict won't disappear by just saying, let's agree to disagree and let's move on. No, the conflict is not disappearing from there. But when we take the opportunity to, like you mentioned, respect the other person's opinion, respect what I called it, their model of the world, the way they see the world is different than the way I see the world. So
Right.
if I part from the premise that everybody has their own model of the world, now I can get curious because I want to learn, why did it bother Marta? Why
Mhm.
did you make that assumption? Where's that assumption coming from? What does this mean for you?
Right. Right.
And when I learn and I ask the questions, now I can be empathetic and I can move the conversation in a very different way because I have more knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Right.
knowledge is power if you use it. So if you ask the questions, make sure that you're digesting the information so you can shape not your reaction, but you can shape the conversation the right way, or a
Mhm.
way that will get you out of that conflict or difference.
Right. And also being open, right? And having compassion for the other person, even if there's a
Absolutely.
disagreement there, because like I can tell you most of the time what I've seen is when there's a disagreement is because there is something going on in the background that we are not seeing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I completely understand what you
So,
just shared. Yeah.
so if you part from the premise that everybody has a different model of the world, if you part from the premise that the information that you're using to interpret this is filtered by your own experience, and their information is filtered by different experiences, and that the information they're using to interpret the data is going to be different from you because it's going to be different. Now you can be more empathetic and curious, and now you're opening the door to exchange communication differently. Now you're opening the door to understanding rather than judgment,
Mm-hmm.
which is the biggest challenge in social media, is that people judge others rather than ask curious questions so we can learn. Uh, One of the things that comes into my mind is social media has basically deleted cultural barriers, right? Now geographically we are the world, we can connect with everybody around the world. We're seeing posts from people from China, from people from Asia, from people from Europe, from people from South America. Like, we're seeing posts from different areas of the world, right? And if we know that now, because there's no barriers, we are trying to live in a world that the cultural barriers are not there, and as a result now there's going to be more differences. And if we need to recognize that the differences are what's going to help us become stronger and more knowledgeable, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where curiosity plays a key role.
Oh my, I love the way you reframe you put that together. And I always think about, I'm going back to LinkedIn, but LinkedIn has 200 countries with 1 billion people from all, backgrounds, walk of life. And so the way you just said that just brought me there. Thank
So
you
think
so much.
about it. Think about it. In the outdoor rooms right now, like if we just create a poll,
Yeah.
everybody in this room, there's no one
Mhm.
from the same area. No one. No one.
Right. Exactly.
So the way we are raised is different. The way our experiences have been different. There's people
Mhm.
that may have had significant trauma. There's people that not. I was watching um in Instagram, this lady was making a comment and about fireworks and the 4th of July. And her perspective was very unique. And a lot of people originally had butchered her because of she wasn't necessarily 100% supportive. She doesn't mind July 4th fireworks, but people extending it to July 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Now it becomes a whole week of fireworks everywhere. She didn't support that. And she was butchered. She went on a live and she basically said, I don't need to share this, but in order for everybody to understand where I'm coming from and gain a different perspective, right? She went on explaining that for her, she was part of a massive shooting. So every time she hears fireworks, it's a PTSD trigger for her where it takes her back to the massive shooting. And although she has worked on herself and she's come to a point where she can make a difference between when it's fireworks and when it's not, she still has a lot of work to do with herself to get herself into a calm situation. Now, if people, instead of judging her comment, would have asked from a place of curiosity, everybody would have learned and everybody would have had more wisdom by the end of the day rather than judging. We don't gain anything by judging others.
Right. But not everyone obviously thinks that way. So
Absolutely.
when you see a post come up and it's, directed to a holiday we celebrate so highly, there's going to be definitely a lot of defense to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, for her standing up and explaining her situation, that's powerful. That's strength that she took to type this out, to let you know. I've seen it here in my community as well. But the responses, again, were not positive, because
And that's
people,
okay,
you
Marta.
know,
That's okay. If the responses are not positive, that's perfectly fine. Because what it shows is that people interpret information differently
yeah,
and people have work to do. So for me, when I see people's reaction, I see it as an opportunity of getting curious and
hmm,
understanding better where they're coming from and having a smart conversation. Now,
yes,
is everybody open to that? Not everybody is, but that's when I realize and I make the distinction. This is not my problem. This is their problem.
hmm,
I'm here, I'm guiding, I'm supporting these highlights that this person has to do inner work, that there's a lot of healing that they need to go through. When I see some a comments from people where they become very defensive, the first question that I ask myself is, what have they experienced in their life that has them react the way that they're reacting? Just asking myself that question makes
right.
a huge difference.
Wow. Yes. I want to jump onto something with that real quick. I just want to welcome Chris. He's in the building. Welcome.
Yes.
Hello, Miss Brendaliz, Miss Martha. Good evening. God bless. Evening hugs. Hugs to you too, brother. Great to see you. I see we also have Lisa has a comment here for us. Love the way of reframing things that trigger negative feelings within us, Brendaliz. It's an opportunity for us to become more self-aware and work on ourselves. Stealing that for sure. And then we have looks like we have Crystal in the building. Welcome, Crystal. Hello, beautiful, lovely ladies. Great to see you, sister. Um, Want to make sure I don't skip anybody. I don't know what happened with my screen. Um, let's look at this one
We have
here.
a lot of great comments.
We do observation over judgment. Agree, Mama. And by the way, Divine is Puerto Rican. She said in the
I
comments.
know. Divine, I can't believe we haven't had that conversation yet.
So you all will have to connect. Um, and then here we go. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions as long as they share respectfully. I'm all for opening a dialogue. I absolutely love that, Crystal.
But Marta, even if they don't
Yeah,
share
I mean,
respectfully, it's up to me how I react to it. So if
right.
it bothers me significantly, and it's highlighting something for me to work on. Now, if I come from the place, this is their shit, this is their problem, this is their baggage that it's coming up to the surface, that it's causing
Mhm.
them not to be respectful, then I can see it from now. It's easier for me to move around it.
Right, right. So I just seen a comment. Oh my goodness, I don't know where it went. Oh, here we go. This one right here. Our internal world reflects our external world.
Absolutely.
Powerful. Yes. So I was going to go back to because I had a conversation uh, regarding certain situations. Why do they trigger, right? And it's because of the childhood like difficulties that you had as a child. So when you I know this is gonna it's gonna resonate because how we react when we think about it, step back, we are using our protective mechanism, right? Brendaliz, I know we had this conversation, so I'm like going back to that.
Absolutely.
So I can definitely tell you with LinkedIn, I've learned a lot about myself. And I've also learned a lot about social media because I never considered myself a content creator or even a founder as for Connect Impact Hub nonprofit, or even being sitting here doing a YouTube with everyone here. But there are those internal things that will come up, and it's like,
Mhm.
how do you react to those? So I love what you shared, Brendaliz. Go ahead and passing the mic back over to you.
I don't even know what I was thinking. So I I just want to encourage people. If something bothers you, before becoming reactive and exploding and thinking you need to have the last word, ask yourself, what's the learning for you here? Because we fall in the trap of, I need to have the last word, I need to be right, right? And we forget that, once again, where the other person might be coming from is a completely different place from you. What if the other person all of a sudden lost someone today and they exploded crazy and they were very disrespectful to you, but they're going through their own battles? And this might not be a moment where they can easily regulate themselves, right? So if you part from the premise that their reaction is 100% a reflection of their inner world, then it's easier to be able to navigate and get curious about it.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. So much love in the comments. I just love this so much. I just want to, I know we're getting closer to time. So Brendaliz, let's
Yes.
talk about, the tools that you have been,
Woo.
helping me with, that a lot of you don't know. But it has been all about the mind and how to maneuver through those difficult situations that we do come across. So please share a little bit or, you know, with us.
I mean, there's so many things that I can work with people depending on where they are. And I think that's important. Every tool that you use has to be based on where you are at a given point in time. Now, techniques that I would say that are easy and anybody can do from home, I would say your breath is your number one superpower. Tap into the power of your breath. Just if you just focus on on try tracing that air as it comes into your body and out of your body, that alone, it's a way to calm your mind. So tap into the power of the breath. Number two, the question that I mentioned before, asking yourself that simple question, is so powerful. Like, is this mine? Does it this belong to someone else or something else? And then with love and care, return it back to the owner. Some people may say, well, I send it back to source. I have source like reshifted, deconstructed, recreated, and send it back to the owner. Whichever mechanism works for you, that's perfectly fine. Other things that people can do is pattern disruption. Pattern disruption is a technique where you're basically, if you see yourself going in a specific pattern that is destructive, of course, the self-awareness, you see yourself, you recognize that you're going on that pattern, then stop right there and do something completely different that will help you get a completely different perspective. um, Looking at things from different lengths. For example, if I'm here sitting with you, and you said something that triggered me, what if I ask myself, what, like, see the situation from Marta's point of view? What if I put myself in Marta's shoes and see the situation from Marta's point of view? What if I see first the situation from myself, from my point of view, then from Marta's point of view, and lastly, what if I see it from a third party point of view? Would I think the same?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I see these two people having this conversation, but I am outside of the conversation. Would I see it the same way? So, looking at different perspectives. Um, there's multiple techniques. I go back into neuro-linguistic programming. I think neuro-linguistic programming gives us opportunities to go into that core program that we have in our mind, and that's part of a lot of what you and I have been working together, is going back into those inner program that cause you to react the way we might react. And when we go there and we change it at the core, we're able to then create a different reality for ourselves. So
Yeah.
I encourage anybody who is in watching this and it's find themselves being very reactive to others, let's just have a conversation, because there are so many different things out there that you can do to help you know yourself better, so you can manage your healing journey in a very different way and get control of your life. We don't need to be slaves of other people's comments. We don't need to be slaves of our own emotions and our own thoughts. We can be the ones who have the control. And what better way to do that when you learn and know yourself deeply.
Definitely. Wow. Gold words there that you shared, Brendaliz. And then how can folks get in contact with you?
I would say Instagram, BE_YOU_with_Brendaliz. That's one way. LinkedIn, Brendaliz Acosta. There's not another Brendaliz Acosta in LinkedIn that I'm aware of. So
Mhm.
yes, it's easy to find me in LinkedIn. And then also in YouTube, actually, I believe I will have to make a comment and put what the link is. I think it's something about being you with Brendaliz too.
Mhm.
Being you, being unlimited or limitless, something like that. It's my YouTube channel.
We'll put the links in the comments and also in the
Absolutely.
event details as well. Thank you so much, Brendaliz, for coming on and sharing social media, mental health, and how we tools as well as we're going moving forward, and how to how to handle those difficult situations and moving forward. So I want to thank everyone that joined us today, and also anyone that watches the replay. Thank you so much for being here and being part of Connect Impact Hub. We're always here to learn, educate, advocate, and support one another. So I'm so thankful that you all showed up on this Saturday evening. Brendaliz, thank you, sister. I will catch up with you later. So
He,
everyone,
he slept, he
oh,
slept the whole way.
so He's so sweet. My little Teddy's waiting for me by the door. So we are heading out on a walk.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Have a great
Bye,
Saturday.
everybody.
See you soon.